Welcome to the Sexy Freedom Media Podcast, a place to discuss pain, passion, and pursuits.
Let's get it. I want to feel alive.
Breathe.
Make some moves.
Protect the throne. This is Sexy Freedom Media Podcast.
Welcome to the Sexy Freedom Media Podcast. It's your host, Helen Edwards, and
January Liddell. Aloha, everyone.
we are excited about today's episode because we are going to be talking about mirror moments, gaining clarity through reflection.
Woo! Well, we've been reflecting a lot, Helen, since we've had different things that we're dealing with. I know for both of us, it's health. We're dealing with our health issues. I was basically down May and June, majority of July. And so that just gave us time to think and reflect. And I thought a lot about my 20s and my 30s. And I was thinking about how free I was and how carefree I felt, and that the skies were the limit when we were younger. They still are to a degree, but I think adulting has gotten in the way. And so it's nice to be able to reflect back and see, where did we come from? Helen, what made you think about reflections? Like, what was it about this topic that inspired you?
Oh, yeah, definitely being sick. I think every time I get sick, I am like, okay, sickness is here. Here we go again. And I'm always strong in the beginning, but then it lasts and it lingers. And then it's like, okay, it's been a week. Oh my God, it's been 2 weeks. And then that starts bringing your morale down. And for me, once my morale starts getting down, then it's not just my physical health that's attacked, it's my mental health, my spiritual health. And that's when I'm just saying to myself, okay, we've got to protect the throne. We've got to protect the mind, body, soul. That inner warrior comes out and starts standing guard while the healer in me starts searching for whatever's malfunctioning. And that's when I kind of dive deep into reflection. So one of the things that actually kind of, inspired this episode is that I was telling a couple of you girls, a couple of my friends, that I was going back in time and listening to my older episodes when I first started this, which was 7 years ago, and just listening to myself talk. Sometimes people listening to themselves is really challenging because we're always our worst critic. We're like, oh, I don't like the sound of my own voice. Well, I've had to get over that because I do a lot of our own editing. So I went back and I listened to myself, and specifically one of the episodes, episode 33, I did a solo cast and I was talking to the audience and saying, why I do podcasting. And I was giving 5 tips on why I did it. But just listening to myself, like, my voice was different. It was much higher. I was more youthful. I can tell the energy was very vibrant. I also was a lot more, like you said, in your 20s and 30s, a lot more free. I can tell I had no inhibition. There was a statement I made in there where I just said, I'm going to go out looking for Dick, or I'm searching for a Dick, or something about Dick. And I just started laughing my ass off. I was like, oh my God. But this is all pre my husband, Rob, before I met him. I was just like, dang, girl, you are wild. So at that moment, I just started loving myself right there. Like, my future self was laughing at my younger self. And I just I got excited about it. And then I remembered parts of myself that are still within me. Maybe not as vulgar, but the free spirit side still there.
I love that. I love that you listen to your podcast. You're right. It's hard to listen and tune in because then we are our worst critics. But the fact that you were brave enough to listen in, and I think you're desensitized already because you do our edits. And so you're like, this is nothing. So I'm glad that you listened in and you tuned in so that we can talk about this, because little did you know was that I was also reflecting myself. We're always #aligned, right? So I love that your younger self, you're right. Our younger self probably has like a higher pitched voice and a more like, I don't give a shit about anything. I'm just gonna say whatever I want to say. Voice. So I appreciate that, and I'm looking forward to actually listening to that podcast. So podcast episode number 33. It's on Spotify or iTunes. And if you're already here on YouTube, then just scroll down and look at number 33. When I think about our 20s, I think about, and you and I were messaging back and forth, and I think about how fun I had, back in my 20s and 30s. Not that I'm not having fun now. I'm still having fun. It's just a different kind of fun. But it's a joy that is nice to reflect on when I'm feeling down. So like you mentioned earlier, when we're sick, all we could do is just rest and lie down. And you and I are both not that type of person. You and I are go, go, go. Let's do this. We are movers. We are shakers. We just get on and just do it. If we say we're going to do it, we're going to do it. And so when health declines and we're forced to just lie down and Netflix and chill for days or weeks or months, it it does bring your morale down. It kind of makes you think like, wow, is this it? And then I reflected back on, in our 20s and 30s. And when I reflected back on it, it made me smile. I smiled. I smiled a big smile because it was great. I had a great time in college. I had a great time moving out here and just exploring and just being me. And it was wonderful. And I love the 20-year-old me. I love the 30-year-old me. I will say though that uh and it's very cute. I was still very naive until this day. There's still parts of me that's naive and innocent. And back then it was very naive and innocent, and it's great. However, I'm very proud of who I am today because of all the different things that I went through in my 20s and 30s. Looking back, I'm like, what was I thinking? How could I have done that? Now as an adult, and I think as an adult, we're more like, all about safety or all about, because like, hello, we might fall or we might hurt ourselves and we didn't, when we were in our 20s and 30s, we were invincible. We were like, nothing's going to hurt us. Nothing's going to stop us. And I love that feeling. And I think as we get older, we still have to have that type of feeling of indestructible, unstoppable, with a touch of safety and awareness. But it's really nice to be able to look back, reflect, and be okay with who we were back then, 20-year-old, 30-year-old self, because without that young January, I wouldn't be my mature self at this moment. I'm still learning, so I don't really know if I'm completely mature just yet, but I'm going there.
I totally agree. I think when I went back and I listened to those older episodes, I was in my 30s still, but I definitely had a lot more of a carefree attitude because it was just me, myself, and I to worry about. My son was already older. So I felt like I was still in my 20s when I was in my 30s. And in fact, there was a joke back then that was like, the 30s is the new 20s. Sometimes they say that about the 40s, right? It really just matters like how you feel, how your energy feels. And I had a lot of energy back in my 30s. Definitely I've shifted since getting into my 40s. But there's also a lot of knowledge we learned from ourselves back then. And I didn't know this, but it's almost like I was listening to myself spit a lot of wisdom that I needed to hear now that I've forgotten. And some of that wisdom was just that excitement to learn, to grow, to have, to do. And I needed that. I needed to be told that again, because there, that statement or that saying, count your blessings because somebody right now is praying for what you have. Or even back in the day, you prayed for what you have now, or you really wanted, like, your goals and dreams back then are what you are living now. And sometimes we don't see that because we're so much we're consumed by this pursuit of goals and dreams that we have further on down the line, right?
Yeah, I think looking back, if for me, I had journals, and I had um so I didn't have a podcast, but I had journals. And I think just reading back on the things that we say to ourselves when we were younger, will help us when we're older. So it's kind of this like nice synergistic thing that's going on, because our younger selves had definitely like wisdom, or even the encouragement to just be. I think when we get older, we become a little bit more um realistic, right? Realistic, because we are adults and we do know like the consequences of certain things, whereas when we're younger we didn't. We're just like, we're just gonna go, we're gonna do whatever. And there's some freedom in that, right? And I think as we get older we forget those freedoms. We forget that, hey, it's okay to be like this type of person, and our younger self will remind us of those things. So I think it's great to just reflect back and forth, especially in times when our energy and, our energies were low because we were dealing with our health. And it's nice to be able to have that in your toolbox, and you're like, you know what? I'm feeling a certain way and my energy is not where I want it to be. Let me take this out of my toolbox and just reflect and remember. And then it's so funny, and I don't know if this happens to you, but when I think back on those younger days, I feel like I'm transported back in time. I'm transported back in time, and it's like this nostalgic feeling that I feel, and instantly my energy is like, it's lifted up because I was able to reflect back on my 20s and 30s. I want to say though, now in my 40s, I feel a lot more confident than I did back then. So yes, 20s and 30s were great. It was my time to just learn more about me, discover who I am. But as the time has progressed, I really feel a lot more grounded in who I am today because of back then, when I was 20s and 30s. So I'm going to ask you, Helen, what is the one memory back in your 20s and 30s that makes you feel alive?
Well, we were actually talking about this yesterday, dancing. That's the one thing that I've kind of held on to. I used to go out clubbing, like you talked about last night. I used to also go out clubbing, uh, gosh, 6 days a week. 6 days a week. It was pretty crazy. I had my son part-time, so when I didn't have him, I was clubbing, and when I had him, I was mommy. It was like this switch on, switch off. But I think a lot of the times the clubbing was a little excessive just because a lot of it had to do with avoidance with some realities in my life. But for the most part, I don't regret it. I don't regret having as much fun as I had. I had a blast. I lived it up. I had so many memories. I have so many exciting nights. I remember waking up in the morning talking with my friends. Oh my God, last night was amazing. And then we discussed like what we did and who, because it's just a girls' night of fun and freedom and laughter and flirting and feeling good in our own bodies and embracing the music and letting our bodies flow. And I actually talk a lot about it in my book. So I don't club. I don't even club anymore. There's my book, Nothing Sexier Than Freedom. I can't even say I club anymore because I don't really feel like a club. I've been out dancing maybe like a few times a year now. And even that, I get tired by like 11 o'clock. I'm like, oh my God, I'm so tired. I'm going home. Like I cannot hang. And back in the day, I remember going out at midnight. Like midnight was the time we'd barely leave to hit the clubs. So I gotta say, that was probably one of my most favorite times and memories. What about you, January?
That's so funny because that is exactly what I was thinking. And I'm like, I wonder if she's gonna say the same thing. Aligned. So yes, definitely clubbing, just like you, 6 days a week. It was like Sunday to Sunday. We probably missed Friday, Monday, because I don't think there's clubs on Monday, but Sunday to Saturday, it was like, let's go. And it was fun. And back then it was all about dance hall for us, and we love dance hall. I was in the Bay Area, and my girls and I just love going. And I think what I love about dance hall is that I don't have to have a partner if I didn't want to, but so it was great to just do my own thing. And if there was a guy there, then like, okay, cool, let's dance, But yeah, definitely the whole flirty. Well, there's a process of going to a club, which is why it took us so long to get to a club. We had to get ready, get ourselves pumped up and then go. And so, yeah, it was like 11, 12 when we finally went. And then, of course, I started clubbing with hubby. And so, yeah, 11, 12. And then here in Hawaii, so, okay, let me rewind. So I clubbed a lot in my 20s and 30s, and that was all girls. All girls loved it because, when we would get back home to my friend's house, we would hang out there, sleep over, and eat and talk story, and then eventually sleep. And then, yes, do it over again. Do it over again. We had so much energy. And then when I started doing it with my husband in my 30s, then it was it kind of tapered. It tapered. So I just like yourself, I would say I go dancing, but nothing like back in my 20s and 30s, and I mean, just thinking about it, I'm like smiling, we did have this one thing that the girls and I did, and it was called, we had a delight, called delight party. And when did we have it? It was like Fridays, once a Friday. Anyway, it just so happened, and we got called out on it. It just so happened that there were a whole bunch of guys. And I'm like, oh man, yeah, that's right. So the question was, are we like, with the guys like the delight part? And that's why we had this party. It was funny, but it was at my house and parents knew. It was great. So I love dancing. I love that as we get older, we still love dancing. It's just a different type of dancing. I think I even texted you guys, hey, this is where we club now, but it's like in the studio at a gym or something, and we're like doing Zumba.
Yeah, Zumba. I definitely Zumba every single day almost. And I dance in my kitchen. I always call my kitchen my new club. Cause yeah, and I can't go all night or all day like I used to. I'm like, okay, an hour maybe the max, and I'm like, "Whoo, I'm winded. I need to I need to sit down." So there's so many things back in the day, but it really came down to the friendships too. Because back in your 20s and 30s is when you made some of your core friendships who've kind of gone on this journey with you too. And I really enjoy that part as well because a lot of our ideas was we're going to grow old together. We're going to be the old ladies who are crazy and wild and dancing and having fun. And now we're becoming those women, not old ladies, but more like we're still doing and thriving and cheering each other on and watching each other grow. So that's been really cool is to kind of look back, reflect on those moments with the friendships I've made and where we're all at right now. There's some of us who thought we'd be friends forever and we've kind of dwindled away. There's some of us who have just become friends through just chatting on texts and messages. Some of us have moved away from each other, like states apart, countries apart. Some of us talk more and have become closer. But the coolest part is we've all grown to give each other this space where it's no longer obligation in friendship. It's more like, I understand you as a woman. I understand you as a friend. I understand you as somebody in this world who's just trying to make a life for yourself and your family. So there's a lot more freedom in my friendship now. And looking back and reflecting on that has been pretty interesting too, because I've grown so much as just a woman, a human being, and a friend, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah, I think back when we were in our 20s and 30s, we did, as you mentioned, cultivated these really strong bonds, that um, we can't take it away. Those are memories and things. That's our history. And it's so funny. I was just thinking about my best friend from college. I haven't seen her in forever. But I know that when we do get a chance to get back together again, it's going to be as if nothing happened, because of the memories and history that has grounded us together. And I think that's what you meant, Helen, is that even though like we've gone to separate different things, and some of us may not be as close as we were before, at the end of the day, when we do reconnect with that person, it'll be like, oh yeah, this is somebody that really meant something whole to you, or important to you, when you were younger. And it's a different chapter, and I really love that we're reflecting on the chapters of our lives. I remember when I was in my 20s, I was saying, oh, I need to be skinnier. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what was I thinking? Like, I looked fantastic. And so now in my 40s, although I don't have my 20-year-old body, my 30-year-old body, I am very thankful and very blessed for the body that I do have. I am taking care of my 83-year-old auntie, and I see how she is and how her body is. And I'm pretty sure in her mind, she's like, I wish I was in my 40s, where we are right now. And so, for me, I I'm not the same person that I was in my 30s, where I was not regretting, that's not the word, but looking back and feeling a loss, a sense of loss. I think that's how I was looking back in my 20s, like 30s to 20s. I'm like, oh, I miss those times. Now when I reflect back, it's more of a joyful feeling. It's more of a, I am so grateful that I experienced that in my 20s and 30s. And I'm so grateful that I am who I am at this very moment, because I am accepting me for who I am, and where my body is at, even though it's not where I want it to be. But I am saying, thank you, body, for who you are, who I am at this very moment, because I could be as depressed as I want to if, I look back in my 20s and 30s and look back on those pictures, be like, oh, or I can switch it around and say, nope, you know what? Thank you. And then thank you to my own body.
That's the thing though, right? That's the thing, is saying, doing things that you do now so that way your future self can thank you later. And when we do happen to take the time to reflect on ourselves in the past, we're in the future right now. We're actually in the present moment. We're in the future. Our future self is looking back and saying thank you to our younger self. And we've talked about this before in other episodes, but every time I think of this concept or this analogy, I'm just like, wow, it blows my mind away, because I am the future in the present moment, thanking myself in the past already. And because of that, I'm very aware that whatever I'm doing right now in life, my future self, now in the future, will thank me. But I want to give her something to be proud of. I want to give her, I feel like a lot of the things I do is not just for me and my family, but it's really in the core of it, it's for me, for myself. Because I've seen this first part of the life, first part of the journey where I'm thinking back, oh my gosh, I'm thanking you, I'm thanking you. So what can I do now for my future self to thank me, in this moment?
I love that you said that, because you're absolutely right. And it's that same concept of, when is the best time to plant a tree? Well, it was 20 years ago. The next best time is now. And that's basically what we're doing for our 60-year-old self. Okay, so we're in our 40s, so in our 60s, right? What do we envision our 60-year-old self to look like? What do we envision our 80-year-old self to look like? Who are we going to be? And you and I both understand that we can create that. We can actually mold ourselves to be who we want to be. And I just want to give a shout out, because I think this is an opportune time. I wanted to say thank you to BJ. BJ, thank you so much. BJ Largent she is one of my idols. And the reason I say that is because she is 80 going on 81. And this woman is riding a horse in the Pony Express like it's like she's in her 20s. So when I think about like our future self, right, I'm thinking, what did BJ do? How did she get to where she was at this moment? And I love that we're talking about this now. So yay, thank you to our 20s and 30s. Now we're like, okay, now what do we need to do, and how do we need to frame ourselves so we can get to our 60s and 80s in such a way that we're healthy, we're, our mind, body, and soul are just aligned and happy and, healthy and happy. So I love that we're talking about this. What are your thoughts for who do you want to be like when you grow up?
That's a good question. Before I answer that, though, I just wanted to let our audience know if you want to listen to the episode with BJ Largent, it's titled 80 Years Young, Timeless Inspiration with BJ Largent. That's going to be episode 203, and it was published on June 28th of 2024. So yeah, who do I want to be? Gosh, I'd really have to think about that question because there's so many answers that come to mind. But when I think of my overall answer through just my history of what I've written down, because I journal a lot, I think I'm always striving to be the best version of myself. And when I think about, well, what is the best version of yourself? I think the best version of myself is happy with and content with the person I am, wherever I arrive to in the moment. So this present moment, am I happy and content with who I am arriving at this very moment I'm in? I think my answer would be yes, I'm very happy because I'm very strong willed. I know who I am. I know who I'm not. I know who I want around me. I know who I don't want around me. I know who I love. I know what I stand for. I know what my values are. I know what my beliefs are. I just know myself really well. So I think that's my overall answer. And my hope is in the future, I feel the same, even though a lot of the beliefs and a lot of my life may change. I still want to feel happy and content whoever I am at that moment of arrival. I think for me, that feels good because although, let's just say I'm not, I'm not like where I am as far as my physical health, like, okay, I got physical goals, right? That doesn't mean that I'm not happy with what I look like and feel like right now. It just means that I got goals to make myself a better version of who I am later on, you know? So, yeah, I guess that would be my answer because I don't want to answer with career moves because I just feel like those are just hats I wear. It's not really who I am to the core. But what about you, January? Because your answer could be different.
So, when I was sick, right, May and June, and I was thinking a lot about life, and what's the purpose of life? And I feel like as far as career and as far as, like I was on, I don't want to say on the verge of death, but I was scared. Not scared because that's not even the word. But there was a possibility that maybe I could have
You were
died.
worried.
I was worried. Well, yeah, I guess worried, anxious, about death. Um, yeah, I was anxious about death, worried about death, and I was thinking about like what did that all what did that all mean? Like in terms of us like really focusing on our goals and things, like our financial business, right? And then our books and all that. And it's like, what did that at the end of the day, what did that really mean? And did I really truly impact another person? And but most important thing or people that I was thinking about was my family. So I was thinking about my husband and my children, and I was thinking, did I do enough for them? And did I spend enough time with them? Did I tell them how much I love them? Um, and Now when I think about life and what needs to be happening during, each day, there are moments in my day when my daughter will stop me and she'll say, "Oh, can you look at this?" And I will just stop everything I'm doing. I think before I used to be like, "Wait, hold on, give me like 5 minutes or let me finish this or whatever." And so I am really trying to be more present with the people that I love and really think about like priority wise, right? When you're on the verge of death, right? When you're on the verge of death, your perspective changes. It changes like how you view people, how you view your circle of friends, how you view um, what you're doing, and it was great. It was great for me to have that type of moment of reflection and to really understand, like, what is it to be, what is life, and who do I need to be? And so to answer that question about who do I want to be when I grow up, I think about Betty White, I think about BJ, and I think about, I just want to be happy. I just want to be happy. I just want to be joyful. I just want to enjoy life. That has nothing to do with finances, has nothing to do with my goals, with my books, book series, nothing. All it has to deal with is just being happy and being a kind human being, a compassionate human being to another person. I think that's probably what's more important to me. And, if I could, I think one of the things that I love to be is to give money away. You can't keep it, like when you die, you're gone, yeah. So to answer that question, it's more of like to be happy, better version of myself, just like you.
That's a great answer. I love that perspective and how you found that just on this, one time getting sick, but you probably had that before. It's just grown into a more wider and expanded version of like, hey, this is what's really important in life. And we all need to come to that. And sometimes people come to it sooner than others, which in your case, I'm glad you've come to it. But one of the things I was thinking about too was when I spend time in reflection, I think about the things I've had to let go, the things I've had to detach from. Some things were really, really hard, such as relationships, jobs, businesses, friends, things that I was so attached to for so long that never served me or made me happy. And w- recently reflecting on some things and looking back at my life, I thought to myself, you know, letting go of A or B was actually a really good thing for me. Or letting go of C and D wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. Life moves on. It doesn't matter. It's going to move on, period. There's always going to be doors that open. There's always going to be an amazing and abundant amount of opportunities and things that are going to come in your life, things you don't know are going to be in your life that are meant to come into your life that the universe is kind of trying to make space for you, and it's a game of Tetris, right? So I tell myself all the time, if something's not making you happy and you're starting to question things, take a step back, reflect, and look at, maybe the past is going to give you some answers. If you need some clarity, maybe look at the past. You were okay. You didn't die. You were fine without that person. You were fine without that job. You were fine without that. You made it. You made it. You thought you couldn't do it. You thought you couldn't survive without A, B, or C, and look at you now. So when I think about those things, I say to myself, okay, I don't want it to take me years to let go of something that I don't feel is serving me in the moment or serving me in some way, like you said, your your joy, or I don't know how to say this, your perspective has changed. You really want to put family and present moment first. And that's kind of what's changed with me, with the grief I went through with losing my dad, my brother, and my mom. Is after all that, I'm very much the same. I don't want to spend years and years in attachment to things that aren't making me happy anymore. So I have this thing I say in my book, which is that I try different things on, like outfits. Sometimes you grow out of these outfits. Sometimes you keep the outfits on for a long time and they grow with you. Or sometimes these outfits are just not fitting. So you take them off and try something else on. And those outfits, it's a representation of jobs, people, places, friends, all attachments, right? It's experience. You're experiencing life in these outfits. And so that's one of the things I constantly remind myself and reflect on, like, hey girl, hey, you're going to be all right. You don't need this right now. Maybe you just need to step back. Maybe you need to cut it off. Maybe you just need a break. Maybe you just need to say goodbye. We don't know. But what I do know is take that outfit off it is not fitting you right now. And once you do, it's like taking off extra weight in your life. And so that's one of the things that has currently uh, helped me and assisted me in making decisions by going back and reflecting on my younger self.
Gosh. Okay, if you haven't gotten it yet, please get your book. Nothing sexier than freedom. I have this and I have the audio. Audio version is great too, but always good to actually hold it in your hand. But thank you for your wisdom, Miss Helen Edwards Olson.
I like wish I can hold up January's book, but I haven't got it
I
yet. I know it's coming. But if you have a copy, hold up your book too.
I don't actually. I don't have my copy. My
Oh my
daughter
gosh.
put it in her backpack and she loves to take it with her to school.
I
So
love that.
I don't actually have it, but I love that we're reflecting back on this and you're right. Boundaries are important. And I know for me, okay, I realize that I am a people pleaser. And I have been, that was ingrained in me when I was younger, to be a people pleaser. And then sometime between my 20s and 40s, I realized like I don't have to do that. I realized that that is not serving me well. I realized that that's not respecting who I am, as a human being. And you're right. During this time of healing, there were certain things that I let go of, and I felt relief actually letting go of it because it was, and Helen, there was so many things on my plate. And while I really wanted to do it, and I could do it, I was doing it, right? And I felt I was managing and juggling it well. My body was not. So my mind is strong, my mind is awesome. However, my body is not aligned with my mind, and my body, and I think it's hard to admit this, but our bodies are just like cars and they're wearing down, and it's not because of anything we're doing. It's just that it's aging, our body is aging and we cannot see like our insides, and we don't know the level of stress that our bodies can take. And I think during that time of healing, I realized I need to let go of A, B, C, and D and just be. And to be honest with you, it has felt like a sense of relief, and it has felt really good for my soul to just let that go. And I'm happy that I let it go. Will it be gone forever? No, probably not. But just for now, this is what my body needs. This is what my mind needs. And I am so much happier and I can breathe better, without that being there. But that is a culmination of what I've learned from my 20s and my 30s, and just constantly, like Helen, working on ourselves and really being attuned or in tune with, who we are and what we want for our future selves. And for my future self, I want to be alive. That's probably the main thing. I want to be alive. And at the rate that I was going and putting all this unnecessary stress, on my body, it wasn't serving me.
Yeah, girl. I like how you keep mentioning alignment. Alignment, okay? I heard that word my whole life. You start younger, you hear it with all the gurus and coaches and everybody, motivational speakers talking about alignment. Now, alignment has evolved as we've gotten older because we've become a lot more understanding and aware what alignment actually means for us. When we're younger, it's like success, 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 physical appearance, money, material, the partner you're trying to align with, right? You're basically trying to get. And now alignment is more of I feel like it's kind of like a lightsaber going through us and connecting us with all that means something to us, such as our family, our closest friends, God, spiritual, physical, all the manifestations that make us feel fulfilled, more purposeful, driven, more alive, like you mentioned, more healthy, more empowered through wisdom and love. Like, oh my gosh, alignment is just so much more beautiful. And I think I get excited thinking about that because I know once we get up to BJ status, alignment's going to even be different. It's going to be even more different for us, right? It's incredible how it's incredible the how what's around us grows with us, but changes. It's very versatile, changes throughout the years based on our understanding of whatever's going on within us and outside of us. It's pretty interesting if you practice observation, which I do. I love observing. I think that's where I get a lot of my wisdom drawn from is because I like to just step back and go, "Huh, okay, whoa. Oh my God, this is weird." Like I have those moments where I'm just fascinated by this design of life. It's pretty incredible.
Yes, I agree. I agree with you. It's pretty incredible. And we should be more observers. And I think that is the one thing I am doing nowadays is just observing. Just sit back and just look at people and just look at, just look at the intricacies of life, in it of itself. And I think when we were younger, we are, what's the word when we were younger? You're still exploring, and it's more of a microcosm of things, and we're like "Do-do-do-do-do," and we're like fluttering like social little butterflies just fluttering all over the place, and just seeing what fits for us. And I think as we got older, we're seeing, I know for me, I am seeing like, who do I want that is my top five, or like my circle, right? Who do I want in my circle? And who do I want to give my energy to? Because as you know, our energies are very they wane up and down, not like when we were younger. When we were younger, we had so much energy. But now as we get older, it's like, who is going to get my energy today? Who can I give it to? And we're still adults, right? So we still have like all of these different things like work and family and all the other chores, things that we have to do around the house, so there's all these different things. And so our energies are like, I guess they're saved like for the ones that really matter the most, and it's and being an observer is awesome because then you get to see like who are the ones that truly matter, who's really there for you, who really cares and supports you, and it's eye-opening to see that, it's eye-opening. And I just love how you just still like to explore and you're like thinking it's like a child, right? You're like, wow, it's so cool.
Yes, just like a child. That's definitely it probably definitely comes from my inner child who's so curious about everything. So, January, let me ask you this, just to kind of wrap this up now, is what can people do to reflect, to look back in the mirror and like what are some of your tips for them to start doing that?
I think when you are feeling low and when you're feeling your energy is just depleted and you're feeling sad, if you can think of a time when you were younger, it doesn't have to be your 20s or 30s, it could be even further down, a time when you felt the most joy and really embrace that moment, that will definitely lift up your spirits. And when your spirits are lifted and you're at a better place, then look at it like Helen was saying, look at it as an observer and kind of transport yourself back in that spot, and observe everything around you, kind of envision it. How was it, to be back then and be okay with it. I think that's the number three, right? Is acceptance. Acceptance for where you were back then and who you are right now. When we reflect back on our inner child, it's not to make us feel guilty or shame or um upset. That inner child that I'm asking you to look at is the inner child that was joyful, the inner child that was like your true self, your who you were, at that very moment. And how has that grown into you now? And so those are the three tips. It's like, find that joy. Number two, observe and be in that moment, reflect and envision. And number three, just it's to, oh my gosh, what was my number three? It was to be just okay with where you were at that moment.
Acceptance.
Acceptance. So those are my 3 tips. What are your tips, Helen?
I love all of those, especially the one that you said, be okay with who you were and don't put shame on yourself. Like that's so important because we made so many mistakes when we were younger and we were still discovering and we're still discovering. So I love that you mentioned that because I think that's part of why we criticize ourselves so much when we look back. We're like, oh my God, I can't believe I did that. Believe it. You were wild, you little wild young thing. Okay. Like you didn't know better. You know better, you do better, right? So, yes, I love those tips. I think one of my biggest tips is what I was telling you girls or suggesting go back in time, go to one of your portals, whether it's Facebook, podcasting, if you're a podcaster, if you're on YouTube, if you were a guest on somebody's YouTube, if you have old video of yourself, if you have old phones, go back and watch yourself or listen to yourself from a few years back, even a year ago. Check it. I do this often. I go look at my podcast from a year ago to this day, and I like to see where I was and what I was talking about. And that always puts things in perspective for me. Like, have I grown? Have I moved up the scale? Am I at a new level or am I still the same person? I really check things. I check things to see. It's like a car, like you mentioned earlier. You're checking your car, you're seeing where it's at. Does it need more gas? Does it need a replacement valve? Do I need a new car? So go back and listen to yourself. And like January said, like show yourself some love and acceptance right where you're at. It's so cool. It's so cool to see who you were. Listen to yourself talk. What were your dreams? What were your hopes? What were your goals? What did you write on your post, on your Facebook post, you know, 10 years ago, if you can get to that, 5 years ago, 1 year ago, 6 months ago? So I invite you to do that, check that out for yourself. Another way of reflection, and I know this is cliche, but it works, journaling. Go back and look at your journals. If you haven't started journaling, start now. And then in your future, you'll be able to look back at these moments and just see where you're at with that, or go find old cards that you got. People will write things about you. You were amazing. I love you because you did this. And it's so awesome to see that and to get that paper notification about who you were, who you once were. So do that. Check out your journaling. I don't really have a third tip except do it. Don't wait. Do it now because there's a gift in that. And everybody loves gifts. So go open yours.
With that said, I love that. Go open yours, just do it. We are going to conclude this podcast. It was great to be here with you all again. Helen, as usual, I love when we get together. This just gives me so much joy. So I'm so happy. Helen, where can we find you?
You can find me on Instagram, Hell of a Journey with 1L, or Sexy Freedom Media, or just Google me, Helen Edwards. I'll pop right up. So will my book, Nothing Sexier Than Freedom. I'm also writing this. Thank you, January. I'm also writing the sequel. So I'm really excited about that. You can follow my journey on my Facebook page, and go check out our sister station, which is Your Morning Sauce. All the episodes are they're between 5 to 6 minutes, and it's just some snack bite of inspiration to help you get through your day. January, where can they find you?
You can find me at januaryliddell.com. My website is up and running. Yay! So you can find me januaryliddell.com. It's 2 L's, 2 D's, 2 L's. You can also just Google me, January Liddell. Friend me on Facebook, January Liddell. I'm on Facebook as well. It's a group. It's Anchored Financial LLC, and on Instagram, Anchored Financial LLC. And of course, I have my book, and I should have had my book. It's so funny. I have your book, my darling. I have Nothing Sexier Than Freedom, but I don't even have my book. That's okay. I have my hardback or my hardcover book coming, so I will show that next time. But you can find that page, Alina the Honeymaker, on Facebook and Instagram, Alina the Honeymaker. You can find my book on Amazon, Alina the Super Saver. See, I almost forgot the name. Alina, the Super Saver. It is a children's book. So if you have children, if you have nieces, nephews, grandkids, or if you just young at heart and you love children's book with awesome illustrations, just shout out to Haruni. Haruni, I love your illustrations. You can get my book, Alina the Super Saver, on Amazon. It is about financial literacy. Yeah, and my hope is to ignite conversations within the families about healthy money habits. So thank you all for watching. Aloha.
Thank you.
Want to hear more?
Visit us at sexyfreedommedia.com.